One of the most common questions that I get is, what does the day-to-day look like as a seven-figure wholesaler? So today, what I'm going to be going over is exactly what I do on a quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily basis in order to consistently and profitably run a seven-figure wholesale organization. If you're new to this channel, all we do is we primarily teach you sales lessons to be able to help you get your business to $100,000 per month. But we also do leadership things like this so that way you can run a multiple seven-figure business consistently. And if you're already subscribed, welcome back. If you just implement a few of these things, I promise they will be game changers for your business. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll give you an overview first, and we're going to go deeper into each one. Now, the first thing that's important to understand is we always start with the end in mind, and then we break it down into daily actionable steps. And so we're going to cover what we do quarterly. We're going to cover what we do monthly. We're going to cover what we do weekly, and then all the way down into daily. So let's talk about quarterly first. Obviously, if you want to hit your goals consistently, it needs to start with a plan. So every quarter we do something called a VTO. On that VTO, we revisit all of our marketing channels. In order to really get a good idea of how good a marketing channel is, you need to look back at least 90 days. If you go and look back for the last 2 weeks, it's not really going to tell you how the marketing channel is performing, especially if you're doing something like direct mail or PPC, you're starting a new campaign. Those things take time to actually get running. We're also going to look at all of our markets. Now, I'm going to go deeper into this, but even if you're just in one market, you have specific counties in each market or specific cities in each market that you might need to double down into. We're going to run our cash conversion cycle to make sure that that's not getting out of hand. What I mean is from the time a lead comes in when we spend money on it until the time that the deal closes, how long does that actually take? It's a really important metric to know what you need to budget for and help you to actually run your projections. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to identify constraints and we're going to create rocks. And so when we revisit our marketing channels, this is really simple. All we're going to do is we're going to look at ad spend for the last 90 days and then how much revenue did each one bring in. A lot of times we'll do hard contracts and we'll do projected revenue off of this. Hard contracts are contracts that are already in escrow and the buyer has released all their contingencies. So if it's a cash deal, they've already submitted a non-refundable EMD. If it's an MLS deal, they don't have a loan inspection or anything like that. This will give us a good idea on how the channels are performing right now. Just because a marketing channel works for you for 6 months doesn't mean it's going to work for you forever. We'll do a simple formula. We'll look at ad spend for each channel. We'll look at the cost per lead, cost per opportunity, cost per contract, cost per closed deal, and then the average deal size. And that will tell us on an individual marketing channel basis what we need to work on. If we're going to cut a channel, if we're going to refine a channel, or if we're going to double down on a channel. I'm going to share my screen and walk through our deal sheet from 2024. I'm not going to give away my 2026 deal sheet. I save that for my advanced members because those are the markets that are working for us right now. And I wouldn't just give that away completely for free. In 2024, we were primarily in Southern California. Now, there were some other markets that we just didn't add into here. So we did a couple $100,000 in other markets. And we also did another couple $100,000 agent direct that I don't want to add to this as well because I'm just focusing on the controllables. So we had Los Angeles County, Orange County, San Diego County, and Riverside County. And I broke down the revenue that we did in each county. And then I broke down the average deal size. Now, the reason I like to know my average deal size is it gives me a toleration of what I could spend if I want to make sure that I'm getting at least a 5x ROAS. And so, for example, in Riverside County, our average deal size was only $36,000, or in Orange County, it was only $29,000. If I want to maintain a 5x ROAS, I know, okay, I can only do $294 cost per lead. I have to have a $5,900 average cost per deal in order to get that 5x ROAS. However, if I'm targeting San Diego, I can go much higher because I have a $729 cost per lead. Average cost per deal can go all the way up to $14,000. And I'll still hit a 5X because our average deal size out there is $72,000. And so we will break this out every single quarter, market by market, which markets are doing really well right now, which markets are doing poorly. What we'll also do is I'll pull up Zillow and I'll show you just a good way to understand how a market's performing. So I will look at the markets that we're after. So let's say that I want to look at all of Los Angeles, for example. That's not how you spell Los Angeles. Los Angeles. And I want to look at all of the properties that are underneath 3,000 square feet because those are the ones that we buy, right? Now, this is a huge market, so there's going to be a ton. Now, I'll see 17,384 results. What I'm going to do from there is I'm going to look at how many are accepted and how many are pending, right? Now that brings me to 22,000 results. All I'm going to do is divide the total amount of actives with the total amount of actives and pending, and that will tell me how hot a market is. What I mean by that is, let's say for simple math, that I see 10,000 properties that are active, and then I add the pendings and I see that there's 20,000. That means that half of the properties are going active, and that's a really good sign for me, right? Half of the 50% of the properties that are going pending, that's still a hot market. Now, if I see like 10% of the properties are going pending, that's a slow market. So that's what I mean by going back and actually looking at the markets that we are targeting. Now, once I do that and I understand which markets we're going to double down in based on our average deal size, based on the cost per lead, like eventually I could get to a point to where I can't get a $100 cost per lead. That market's just not going to work anymore. I'll cut the ones that aren't working and I'll double down on the ones that are. From there, I will run an average cash conversion cycle, and I will typically do that by channel. So I will go back and I'll look at, let's say that I just want to look at PPC, for example, and I want to look at iSpeed to lead. So I'll just look at 2 channels. What I'll do is I'll go, okay, what was my spend? What was my revenue? And then what was my average cash conversion cycle for each? So iSpeed to lead was a 4.84, but I got a 50-day average cash conversion cycle. And then for PPC, it was an 81-day cash conversion cycle back in 2024. What this means, it's a really simple formula to be able to get it. I just look at lead created date, I look at close date, and I just subtract them on an Excel spreadsheet. It's really simple to do. And that means that if I spend $30,000 a month, well, if I only have $60,000 and I'm doing PPC, I'm going to run out of money. However, if I have $30,000 and I invest in iSpeed to lead, I'll spend $30,000 and I will make $120,000 within 50 days. And so that will help me understand how to actually allocate my budget. Now, after that, I'm going to identify my constraint. So what I do is I will go to what I call my goal versus actual. I'll put in how many leads I got, qualified leads, appointments, offers, contracts, and closed. And I have my industry averages. So I'll have 65% here. I'll have 65% here. I should be at least 90% appointments set to offer made. I should be bare minimum if I'm in person, 25%. Realistically, if you have a good sales team, 25% offer to contract and you're hitting all of these metrics, that's where you should be. And then I'll be at a 65% contract to close. So once I understand that, I go, okay, which one of these metrics is the farthest off from baseline? That metric for this is going to be lead to qualified lead. I have a sheet that I'm not going to share for free here, but it's called my law of constraints sheet. I give it to my advanced group members. We have an advanced group where we do trainings just like this every single Tuesday. We have one of the largest wholesalers in the country that comes and talks about the lessons that he learned scaling a business to $2 million per month. Plus, I teach lessons like this on how to run your KPIs, how to run your team. We also do 5 sales trainings a week, and we have a dispo call, a marketing call, an underwriting call, everything that you would need to help you in your business. So I'll drop a link in the description if you guys want to get access to that constraint sheet, or you just want some additional sales training and things like that. But what that law of constraint sheet does is it tells me what I need to focus on if I have a specific constraint. So if I need to get this number up, it looks like I would need to get this up about 8%. What could I do to be able to do that? So then I'm going to go to what I call my VTO. Okay. My VTO is going to be where I put all of my numbers in and what each person needs to do. So me as the sales manager, if I want to get my lead to qualified up, I know there's going to be a couple of steps. I need to make sure that I have good speed to lead. I need to make sure that I have drip campaigns that are activated. I need to make sure that we're following call cadences. And I'll typically just focus on a checklist of things to do, and I'll create out a spreadsheet. So like, let me give you guys an example of one of my constraint spreadsheets from a previous quarter. I think I called it how to crush my opportunity to offer made. That was one of our constraints. One thing that we did is we bump all calls from acquisitions. So that way, when an appointment is booked, we get out there a lot faster. We also did something where lead flow stops if the opportunity to offer made is below 80%. And so we had a sales team that was local in Southern California. And if they were not making offers on at least 80% of their opportunities, they would stop getting leads. There's a whole checklist here that I'm not going to go into, but this is an example of something that I would create as a quarterly checklist to identify my constraint. Now, I'm also going to put something on my calendar to make sure that that number is actually improving. Typically, I do that on Fridays and I review the metric from the previous week just to make sure that we're actually hitting those metrics. So those are all of the things that I do on a quarterly basis. I create my VTO. Once I have my VTO, it's going to tell me how many leads we need, how many net leads, how many appointments completed, contracts closed, total revenue, and spend. And then I will will go update that into my goal versus actual. So let's say I just wanted to do $100,000 a month, and these were all of my metrics. I was at 57, 72, 100, 32, and 63. I would just come right here and I would see, okay, I need 11 leads a week. I need to make 4 offers. I need to get 1 contract, as long as my average deal size is 28K, and I could spend about $297 per lead and get a 7.9x return on ad spend. This would be my lead to deal. This spreadsheet basically tells me everything I need to be able to run my business. And I also check in on this every single week. So let's say, for example, that these were my metrics here on the right, and it is January 30th. I could see, okay, I'm way above target. If it was all the way at the end of the month or end of the quarter, like I'm barely hitting, right? Based on, now this is all built off of $800,000 a quarter, not 300,000. So this sheet right here will tell me how far away I am from my targets, and also how far away I am from my conversions. And so I update this sheet every single quarter with the actual revenue target that we're hitting, how much we need to spend to be able to get there, what our ROAS is, what our cost per lead is, all of the things that we need to see in one simple, pretty sheet. Now, once I have that, then I go back to my monthly KPIs. And so at 7 figures, you don't always have a sales team, but once you get into multiple 7 figures, you typically do have a sales team. So there's a couple of things that I do. One is called a 30-day protocol. And so the 30-day protocol, all I'm doing is I'm going over how many leads did I sign each rep, how many offers did they make, what was their appointment to close, how many contracts did they get, how many closed, what's their average profit per deal. And then there's some other things that I'm not going to share on here that I go over as well. But every single 30 days, I review all of this with my sales team to make sure they're consistently hitting KPI, and I'll give them feedback if they are not. And so those are my performance reviews. You can do those with lead managers. You can do those with your dispo reps. You can do those with your acquisitions managers, which is my main focus. You can really do it with anybody on your team. You just say, hey, how many leads do you need? How many deals need to close? Now, another thing that I'll do is vendor check-ins. So you can do vendor check-ins weekly, depending on the channel. So like we just opened a new channel, which is direct mail. Direct mail, it doesn't really make sense to do weekly, because if we drop, 10,000 mailers week 1, we're not necessarily going to get, 10 phone calls right out the gate. We might get 2 week 1, and then from those mailers, we might get another 2 the next week. So we decided that we are going to do those direct mail vendor check-ins once per month. However, there are other channels that do require you to check in a little bit more often. Like, for example, digital ads, Google ads, let's say Facebook, cold calling agencies. They should be guaranteeing you a specific amount of leads per week. And so you should be checking in with them to make sure that they're actually hitting those leads. Those leads are turning into appointments, and those appointments are turning into contracts. That should also be a two-way call, because they should be making sure that you are converting the leads into contracts, as long as they are actually people that want to sell the property. And so then we do our vendor check-ins. We'll do those once a month, and we'll do our overall KPI check-ins once a month as well. But again, you can do the vendor check-ins once per week if you need. Once we go through that, I'm going to break down what we do weekly. And so weekly, we'll obviously have our L10. So I brought up my goal versus actual. I'm going to update this every single week with where we are quarter to date. So let's say, for example, I want to get to $100,000 per month. Let's say it's the beginning of the year, right? So we would start out here. Let's say we're the first weekend. I'm going to come in and I'm going to put in, okay, I got 10 leads. Let's say I got, 4 qualified leads. Let's say that I got 3 appointments, 1 contract, and 0 closed deals. And we'll put in our spend and everything like that. Well, I can see already that we're 2 qualified leads away from our goal. So it tells me what I need to get my team to focus on right away. This is something that we do every single week. We look at the goal versus actual. We look at what our constraint is, and then we aggressively tackle that constraint. We also do a pipeline review. And so we're going to look at all of the active deals that we have inside of our pipeline. Where are they at? What's stopping them from closing? What do we need to do to make sure that they're closing? Sometimes we'll have to do price drops. Unfortunately, hopefully we never have to do price drops, but if we do, we have that conversation. We tell the seller exactly why we're doing the price drop. We'll bring up exactly what needs to be fixed, and then we'll go through our price drop process. And last thing we're going to do is our constraint call. So when I brought up my plan to crush opportunity to offer made, there were a lot of things that I had to look at every single week. So on Friday, I would go review all of the opportunities that we had and see how many actually turned into offers and which ones didn't and why. The reason that I do this is what you focus on expands. And so if I put all of my attention, there's a saying, where your attention goes, the money flows. If I put my attention every week on just solving this one constraint, and I get my entire sales team together to focus on this one constraint, odds are it's going to improve. And if you just do this every single week and you're constantly tackling constraints, your business is going to grow as long as you know the right constraint to be able to tackle. Okay, so that's our weekly activities is we do our LTINs, we do our pipeline review, and we do our constraint calls. Now I'm just going to talk about the daily activities. Now, a lot of this can depend on what you do inside of your business, what your main role is. So some people are really, really good at marketing. They're terrible at sales. You would have a sales manager do a lot of this stuff. Your daily activities might be checking in on the ad account every single day. However, my belief is you need to be a good sales manager in order to run a multiple seven-figure wholesaling organization, because everybody kind of gets their leads from the same place. The difference between the people that crush it and the people that don't are how well they can convert their leads. And so there's two main things that I focus on every single day. The first thing is the morning huddle. So my morning huddle, I do like clockwork. I ask my sales team the same thing every single day. I said, what are you grateful for? What were your KPIs from yesterday? And what's your most likely to close? The sales performance KPIs are 120 dials, 120 minutes of talk time, and 2 offers. Now, they at least need to get the 2 offers. If they hit the 2 offers and the 120 minutes of talk time, I really don't care about the dials. But if they did not hit their 2 offers, they need to hit the 120 minutes of talk time. They need to hit at least 120 dials. Typically, they need to make more dials than that because 120 dials doesn't take that much time. And so I will go through gratitude, performance KPIs, and then the last thing is most likely to close. What is your most likely to close opportunity in your pipeline right now? This brings me to the next part, which is my manager calls. I'll go through a process that I do every single day. The first thing I'll do is I'll ask them, why is that deal not closed yet? And what's getting in the way of it? It might just be they need to call them back. They need objection handling training. And so what I'll do on that call is I'll go through objection handling training on exactly what they need help with that day. I do the exact same thing with my students inside of our advanced group is I'm always focused on the deal that is most likely to close and what objection handling they need to be able to close that deal, instead of just teaching people a bunch of random topics that they're going to forget in a couple of months. I want my sales training to produce actual results. And so I'm focusing on the leads that are likely to close right in front of them. And so the first thing I'll do is I will go through and I will do a role play with them. Now, once I do that, I don't just let them go on their own and say, hey, tell me how that went. A lot of times I will go through and I'll start listening to their calls. So I have something called smartphone, and I'll share my screen and show you guys what this looks like. So I can listen to Mike's on a call right now. I can hit this ear button. And if I hit this ear button, I will be able to barge in and listen to the call. Now, there's also a button where I can whisper to the rep. So I could say, hey, this is what you need to say to be able to overcome that objection. And then lastly, I could just barge in and I can take over the call. So that's what I spend most of my time doing, is listening to their calls, helping them get better on that call by coaching them through it. And if I feel like they don't have it, I can just barge in as the sales manager. I'll say, hey, just tell them that your sales manager is going to call them in a second, or tell them your sales manager is going to hop on the line. And then I'll hop on the line and I'll start helping them with whatever they need to be able to get that deal closed. We just did this earlier today and we locked up a contract from it. So you can also do things like boiler room style. Everybody's on the Zoom call. Everybody's making dials together. I find that when you do that, your team hits a lot more talk time and you end up locking up a lot more contracts just because there's that competition. But I do that every single day. I'm focusing on KPIs every single day, and I'm focusing on driving revenue every single day because that's what's going to keep the lights on. That's what actually makes the business money. So if you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe. We do new videos like this every single week. I will see you guys on the next one, and hopefully this helps a lot. You guys go crush it. Bye, everybody.